Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Welcome to another episode on Beyond the Touchline post Game Week show for Game Week 12. Of course, I think this Game Week has shown a lot of crazy matches. We have a look at my predictions, we have a look at the results, and we'll talk about it, talk about the table as well. Clearly, one team is running away with it, and another club is in absolute trouble, in my opinion. My favourite club, I don't need to say the name. But otherwise, I think it's been quite a fantastic week. A lot of action. I'm recording this after all the Champions League games have been played. So then we can talk about that a little bit as well as we talk about the teams and coming into Game Week 13 as well. That will be for another video. But yeah, let's jump right in. And of course, drop a like on the video if you guys are enjoying this series. And of course, subscribe if you are new and get discussing in the comments down below how you think the Premier League season has been so far. I think, for me at least, it's been pretty entertaining. And of course, we'll kickstart with my predictions. These were the predictions that I had for the pre-game week show. I had 5 out of 10, I think, for Game Week 11. And now we're at 2 out of 10 for Game Week 12, which evidently isn't good. I think some shocks here and there, if we have a look at the results. Wolves beating Fulham, I think that has been a shock for me at least. Villa drawing with Palace, that's a shock for me. City losing 4-0 to Tottenham, that's definitely a shock for me. Ipswich Town Man United having a draw a little bit, but I think Newcastle losing to West Ham, that has been a shock as well. At least that's for me. And of course, we have a look at the Premier League table. Clearly, Liverpool are running away with it now. Apparently, there's a statistic that any team who had 8-point gap at this point in the Premier League season, they went on to win the league. So if Liverpool don't win the league, that is clearly going to be the biggest upset I think we'll ever see. But otherwise, yeah, I think if you look at elsewhere in the table, you can see the 4 teams, Chelsea, Arsenal, Brighton, Tottenham, all picking up big wins for their own teams, catapulting themselves up the Premier League table. And of course, as I said, when the Premier League table was very tight in the midfield, starting to see a little bit of a gap. And of course, West Ham winning their game in 14th now. They've managed to put themselves up to 15 points, which means they're pretty close to Tottenham now, 4 points to Tottenham, which again, I guess at this point in time, still puts them in contention for European spots. But otherwise, Wolves 2 wins on the bounce have gotten them out from the relegation zone, I think, for the first time this entire season. Ipswich, despite picking some really good results, actually still find themselves in trouble in the relegation zone, but same points with Wolves, just negative goal difference now. The goal difference being a lot lower than Wolves putting them in that spot. Palace, honestly, not very good either, and Southampton still losing games, I guess. But otherwise, again, the midfield is still pretty tight, and just because of the fact that some teams have picked up wins, some teams didn't, that meant, that little shuffle around in the table happened. So that was quite interesting to see as well. But I think if you can look at the statistics, at least over here, you can see from 8th all the way to 12th, all teams on 0 goal difference, which is also, I think, very intriguing. Just shows how teams have been, I think, really good prolifically, I think, because of attacking, but also defensively. I think we can see quite a bit of flaws here. City definitely one of the biggest flaws in terms of their defensive performances. We'll talk about that later. If you have a look at these statistics, Haaland still having 12 goals. Obviously didn't score against Tottenham with that 4-0 defeat. Salah did score a brace against Southampton, puts him up to 10 goals. That will be very interesting, I think, coming into the Game Week 13 when Liverpool play City. That will be pretty interesting. Wood and Wemo both didn't score, so they're still on 8. Palmer didn't score either, despite Chelsea winning. We'll talk about Palmer, his miss later on as well. About assist-wise, I think Saka had an assist over the weekend. On maybe not, but Salah, I think he had an assist. I can't exactly remember the exact numbers, but you see the numbers here on your screen. That's about it, really. Nothing much has changed, I think, in terms of the Golden Boot and the assists. Like in terms of the pecking order, it's pretty much stayed the same. So now, obviously, going to talk through the results in detail. Unfortunately, I didn't really watch many games, only 2 actually, and I didn't watch the full games as well. But I think we just go through in order as always, and then we'll talk about the teams and how I feel like how has that shaped up the weekend at least. Of course, the first game, Leicester against Chelsea. I think that was a really interesting game. I felt Leicester played a pretty okay game. I think there's not much to expect ultimately. I think when you come to the game, and again, the quality of the team clearly isn't going to be good enough to beat a Chelsea that is pretty good at this point in time. Chelsea have been fantastic. I think that's one thing's for sure. Chelsea have been so good up there, and I think they really are in the hunt for a very good spot in the Premier League this season. And yeah, they just need to continue what they're doing. Obviously, I think the penalty was a bit silly to give away. helped Leicester to at least get a goal back, but it was a little bit too late. I think it was the only shot on target as well. But Leicester had a few good chances. I think Ndidi sort of missed a little. I think when Leicester had the opportunity to break, I think they really showed a certain level of promise. But I think just Chelsea just really had the upper hand. And of course, I think that miss, Palmer miss hitting Madueke, that was pretty funny. I think the fact that both of them were able to have a laugh about it on the spot as well, I think it shows like this Chelsea team that's starting to gel very, very nicely together. And I think Maresca is really doing really well with this team. I think, as I said, the concerns that people had with Maresca at the very start, I think it's starting to fade out. I think people are really seeing a Chelsea that are probably back to the Chelsea that people are used to during the Mourinho days, Antonio Conte days, where they had so much potential. I think Maurizio Sarri as well had a pretty good Chelsea performance. So I think it's good. I think what we're seeing from Chelsea right now is very, very positive. As for Leicester, after this game, Cooper had the sack. And I think I'm on the side of questioning, like, why did the sack even happen? It just doesn't sit right with me. I think you've got to understand, like, the Leicester isn't the Leicester that won the Premier League a couple of years back. And they aren't the Leicester when Brendan Rodgers was still there to bring them to the Champions League, to bring them to European spots, to finish in really good positions in the Premier League. Leicester have lost some pretty good players along the way. I think obviously namely James Maddison and Kasper Schmeichel even leaving the club at some point. It's very difficult, isn't it, when you've got a team that is most likely, I think at best, a really good championship side, a winning championship side, but definitely not a challenging Premier League team. What even the board is expecting out of Cooper? You can't expect him to do extremely well and suddenly catapult them up. I mean, if you're going to compare the performances to Nottingham Forest, I mean, obviously you can't make that comparison. Nottingham Forest is done extremely well. You could argue that Nuno is done, he's really gelled the team together. But ultimately, I think when I look from Leicester's perspective, the team that they have at this point in time, where they are in the Premier League table, I think it's already really, really good. Obviously, I think there are more opportunities for them to score more points, but it's tough, isn't it? I think they should have had that expectation coming into the season, knowing that it isn't going to be easy. I really don't understand why the board have sacked them. And I believe Ruud van Nistelrooy is actually going to take over the job as we speak. So that's not too bad. Of course, I think Ruud getting another job in the dugout. He's done quite well at Man United. Now with a team that isn't the best, how is he going to get his philosophy into this club? I think that will be very, very interesting to watch as well. But I feel bad for Cooper because when he was with Nottingham Forest, again, they didn't have a very good team. And he managed to help them stay in the Premier League. And obviously he got the sack last year halfway through the season. But I still felt like he did a really reasonably good job. Yes, win rate in the Premier League is very low for Steve Cooper. But you've also got to understand the caliber of teams that he's been taking. Clearly, it shows like it's not going to be easy for Cooper. But he's tried his best. And you've got to give the salutations to him. So, unfortunate, I think the sacking is the biggest talking point of this matchup. I mean, after this, when he got the sack, I just didn't understand it. It came to me more as a shock. If anything, I felt Lopetegui was closer to the sack than him, or Oliver Glasner for Palace. I felt like they were closer to the sack than him, than Cooper. He's only 5 months in charge, if I'm not wrong. So this is like inexplicable to me. But otherwise, I think a Chelsea team, that their performance was really, really good in that game. Really comfortable, confident, exactly, I guess, what you need out of a team that, is trying to challenge again for Champions League positions. So yeah, pretty good from Chelsea. Leicester, I guess we'll continue to observe. Will be very intriguing to watch these two teams over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think next one with Fulham and Wolves, I think this was a shock, right? I didn't watch this game, watched highlights, extended ones as well. Fulham had some really good chances. I don't understand how Raul Jimenez had missed that from like 4 yards out. That was the miss of the season, evidently, so far, I think. But Wolves just, I don't fully understand how they've managed to get this win across the line. When I look at the chances that both sides have, I felt they were quite good. Wolves just were a lot more accurate, I guess, in their shots. But of course, don't get me wrong, their Cunha's goal, fantastic, brilliant. Yeah, I think obviously towards the end as well, the fourth goal was more of like an icing on the cake for Wolves. Are they coming back? I think the answer is probably a yes. I think we're seeing a Wolves that I think we're not used to seeing, but a performance that emulated, I think, a lot of last season. So I think Wolves, if they continue this performance, obviously it would be great for them, right? I'm not going to deny that. But with regards to Fulham, I think this is a very disappointing result for them. they shouldn't be in this position where they're losing 4 goals to the good. Oh, okay, 3 goals to the good if you count like 4-1 against a team that were arguably really struggling at the bottom of the table. They didn't pick up their first win till game week 11. I think let's make that very, very clear. And Fulham have been pretty good this season. So this game to me just didn't make any sense. Like, how is it that Fulham were not as competitive as they should be? Statistic wise, it looks really competitive. The score said otherwise. But I think when I look at the game, I thought it was pretty tight in general. I think the goals, like the quality of the goals, maybe just that good to have the disparity between both teams. But yeah, I think Fulham will probably scratch their heads with this one. I think I've scratched my heads too. And as I'm talking, I feel a little bit of like, I don't really understand how this has happened, but obviously it has happened. But otherwise, I think, things need to change up a little bit. Definitely. It's not very positive for Fulham as we speak. They won their last 2 games. So it's a weird one, this one, coming into the next game week. So hopefully this is like a one-off. Obviously, I said Fulham, they aren't necessarily the most consistent team out there. But when they have the results, they can really, really produce. So I think the quality was there in the game. I think the results just didn't really reflect that quality. But otherwise, I think it's a great win for Wolves, 100%. Hopefully this builds a level of momentum for them, because I think it's a big win, and goal difference obviously playing in their favour massively right now when they've got such a bad goal difference at the start. So yeah, might be the start of a Wolves climb again, but Fulham, I hope this is just a one-off and hopefully they'll get better too. Yeah, Everton Brentford. This game I felt okay. So initially when I made the prediction, I said Brentford probably had the capability to get this game over the line with just a 1-0 win. And for Everton, I think the best they could do is to just have the game a 0-0. And evidently the best situation happened. But a red card happened, right? And I think that red card was a little bit interesting. I can understand why it was a red card. I think it's definitely 100% strong yellow. I think whether or not there was a red card was obviously down to the referee. And I think, yes, to a certain extent, I felt that was quite a really bad tackle, I think. But when Everton found the opponent down to 10 men, I don't exactly think that they've taken this opportunity to make the best out of it. 0-0 the result, right? And I think in terms of clear-cut chances, Brentford clearly had that. I think there was a one-on-one chance. I'm not sure if it was Mbomo or Visser. Clear one-on-one. Pickford saved them again. I think Brentford had a couple of chances. Pickford saved them again. As for Everton, obviously, I think very early on that flick, the Flecken saved, that should have been a goal. I mean, the more like the goalkeeper made a brilliant save, that should have been actually a goal. I don't think it was Everton's fault for missing that, because it was clearly on target and goalkeeper made a huge save. But after the red card, I felt, what's the threat there? I mean, from the highlights, I felt like there were a massive threat, but maybe in the game itself, you could see maybe Everton pressing a lot, and maybe that 10-man deficit that Brentford had made a difference. But it felt like it only made a difference for Everton to just get a draw against Brentford, which I felt clearly is not a good result at all. It's difficult, I think, for Everton at this point in time to make these sort of performance, because they really need to make these games count. And as for Brentford, evidently not good as well. It should win again with this game against Everton. I felt there was an opportunity, clearly opportunity lost for them. They should have scored goals. They should have won that game as well. Especially when Everton are clearly in the most inconsistent kind of form, and you're going to come in and East had the home advantage. I just felt like quality-wise, Brentford probably stood about a chance, but ultimately nothing came out of it. And I felt, yeah, that's not a very positive thing for Brentford. So not really much to say about this game. There weren't really much talking points except the fact that I think both teams have clearly wasted an opportunity to get wins on both ends, on their own ends at least. Right, Arsenal and Nottingham Forest. Well, I think this is the Arsenal that we were expecting, right? 3-0 win. Nottingham Forest were clearly not competitive. Obviously, the gap between them and Arsenal just too huge. But remember when Nottingham Forest did beat Liverpool at the start of the season. So clearly, this wobble at Nottingham Forest that I've been saying constantly, it is happening right now. This is not very good territory for Nottingham Forest. They've now lost 2 games in a row. See, the previous one against Newcastle and now against Arsenal. They have to be worried, as I said, this is clearly not good. They've only scored 1 goal now in the past 2 games, which is very, I guess, considering the season that they've had so far, very un-Nottingham Forest-like. So, but I mean, ultimately Arsenal just dominated the game. Again, I'm not sure if it's home advantage playing a part, but clearly 3-0. Brilliant result from Arsenal. Fantastic. Nothing more to say about them. Champions League. I think that's exactly what City should have done, smack Sporting, Arsenal did that 5-1, which is a crazy result from Arsenal's perspective. Yeah, just thus far, the past 2 games, brilliant for Arsenal. Looks like a bounce back to me. It looks like they are going to start, really just getting back up to speed now. I mean, they're just a point behind City in the league. So again, they could even overtake City this weekend if City do lose and they do win. But again, that gap to Liverpool, I'm not exactly too sure what's going to happen with that. But yeah, Arsenal, from the past 2 games at least, results-wise, and I think the performance is up there. I think that's good from Arsenal. Nottingham Forest, again, they need to be cautious, they need to be wary that these sort of things do happen to them. Were going to happen to them at some point, and now they've just got to, really push again, and hopefully it'll get better for them. I mean, as I said, I really hope Nottingham Forest have a really good season, but again, the points I'm giving here are just, to me at least, are quite realistic of the stature of how difficult it is to be consistently good in the Premier League. It's not an easy league to be in, especially when you're not exactly a top side. And even when you're top side, City, you can have your own fumbles. So I think this is a learning point for Nottingham. But hopefully next game, they're able to produce a very good result. We'll see how. Right, Bournemouth-Brighton, I think, again, it's another one where you had the red card in the 60th minute for the opposing team. Didn't make the most of it, despite being 2-0 down at a point in time. I think there was an opportunity definitely to close the deficit and at least salvage a draw out of it. Can really see the difference. The moment when Brighton were 10 men down, the way Bournemouth were attacking, the way that they were pushing forward the ball, really, really good play. And you can see Brighton really struggling to organise themselves in the 10-men sort of position. That definitely was a yellow card, which obviously turned into a red because 2 offences. But yeah, I think Bournemouth again wasted the chances. Really good goal from Brooks, don't get me wrong. But Brighton had a really lively start, and when they were 11-11, as in when they both had 11 men to play with, yeah, Brighton showed really, really good potential, really, really good performance. I think Bournemouth had their chances as well. I think Evan Newson, that goal was offside. Could have really changed the complexity of the game for sure. But I felt like Brighton, again, they were holding their own with when they both had 11 men and they were doing good stuffs. I think just Bournemouth weren't necessarily the most clinical side, neither were they as creative as we expect them to be. And of course, I think the very last kick of the game, Semenyo, I think really had that fantastic volley, hit the bar. I think that made it 2-2. Obviously, the prediction that I did would have been right, but also it would have been a very classic game for both sides. But obviously, both sides would beat Manchester City, both 2-1. And now Brighton came out on top in this particular matchup. So it's good for Brighton. They're really picking up the wins, as we can tell. It obviously reminds me of the Zerbi days very early on when he was doing really well with Brighton. Bournemouth, again, I think there's a little bit of inconsistency, but of course, ultimately, it's still a really good side. And I think the performance that Bournemouth are putting in the season is really good. The manager has done pretty fantastic as well. You've got to give credit to the manager where it's due. The players as well putting really good effort. So it was going to be a tight game for sure with these 2 teams, but I think when they were both having 11 men, I think Brighton definitely had the upper hand. But once they lost their men, it was clear to see Bournemouth were really knocking on the door. Just that I guess if they make their shots count and ultimately failed to get a better result than not even having a single point, and they were at home as well. So I think from Bournemouth's perspective, it's not a very, very good result. But from Brighton's perspective, fantastic. Good run of form that they're having right now, and definitely I think they're going to carry this forward. But I think Bournemouth as well, I think they're also good signs to see. So I think it's very positive for these 2 teams, and hopefully they have a very good Premier League season ahead, of course. And yeah, that's it for this game. Yeah, Villa Palace. This one I think was a shock for me. I felt Villa should have won, and this meant it's not good for them now. Now winless in 4 Premier League games, and arguably they were really fighting at the top prior to this. So I think when you've got a struggling Palace, it's a good result for Palace, and I think Palace even had the chance to win. Obviously, you can argue Dean Henderson made some really good saves, but ultimately, I think it should have been a very winnable game for Villa. There's a reason why I predicted 3-0 in the first place, because I just had that much confidence in Aston Villa. But yeah, the results show otherwise, and I think it's not very positive for Villa. I mean, it's not the same for Palace either. It's not positive for them, because Glasner clearly isn't doing a very good job compared to the end of last season. They're always taking that as a comparison. That has always been taken as the benchmark for Palace's performance coming into the season. So that's exactly why we are questioning what happened to Palace. But Villa as well, not very good. But to hold 0-0 against Juve this morning, that was a very good performance as well. And maybe they deserve to win at some point. I didn't watch the highlights, I was looking at score-wise. Yeah, Villa are very good in the Champions League, aren't they? They're doing extremely well in the Champions League, for sure. But in the league, it's a bit wobbly, isn't it? So I think Emery needs to sort this out. It's not very good, is it, for Villa? I think 2-0 against Liverpool, 4-1 against Tottenham, and now this. Yeah, they need to really think about it, how to recoup and get a performance in the Premier League. And hopefully when the next game week comes around, when they face, I think, Chelsea, well, I think that would be a tight game, wouldn't it? We'll talk about that in the pre-game week show for Game Week 13. But just by looking at this particular game, yeah, I think it's a disappointing result for Villa. They should have done better, 100%. And I think for Palace, I think it's a very good result for them, but ultimately it's still not very good because, yeah, they're struggling in the league. So, yeah. Right, the next game, which is clearly the game I think people want to talk about. Honestly, at this point, I'm probably leaning towards like full-on video, like a no uncut of me just ranting about Manchester City over the course of this month. Winless in an entirety of November, which is crazy to me. If you're telling me that City were to go an entire month without winning a single game, I wouldn't have believed you, but I've got to believe the facts have been put in front of me. Supported this club for a decade. I still love this club, but this is just unacceptable. 4-0. I've watched the game. After the first half, I decided to just stop. Had great chances in the first half, couldn't convert. But Tottenham were just very, very good, honestly. I felt City were really knocking the door against Tottenham. Tottenham were just really clinical, and the chances they created were just fantastic. They really knew how to break City down. Tactics, perfect. Inch perfect from Tottenham, 100%. You've got to give credit where it's due. Do I think it's a 4-0 kind of result? No. I honestly believe no. This is too much to handle, I think, for me at least. It was 5 losses in a row, right? And then when, and I'll talk about Champions League, when coming to the game against Feyenoord, I was just thinking, come on, we've got to surely win this game now. We've got to at least have a little bit of confidence coming to the game against Liverpool. And of course, I think Feyenoord was Arne Slot's previous team. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, did that game go horribly. How do you go 3-0 up after 75 minutes, right? And you were 3-0 up for 75 minutes. And you scored the third goal at the 50th minute. And you had the lead till then. And still managed to have the game at 3-3 at the end of the game. The peak definition of bottling. This is the first time I've seen from Manchester City. It gave me Liverpool Palace vibes when Liverpool messed up the league and gifted, quote unquote, gifted, City the league that year. Yeah, they were 3-0 up. I remember Liverpool and Palace brought it back to 3-3. That was a crazy game as well. It had a similar vibe, but Jesus, I mean, come on. Feyenoord scoring 3 goals in that short span of time, and defensively it was just horrific. Edison, I think the last goal just came out, completely missed the ball, and then Feyenoord just scored. Obviously, Grealish at the final chance there could have converted to make it 4-3, but that should have been the case, was it? Like, should it? Like, I mean, when the team is as good as it gets, when the team are 3-0 up at that point in time, and I think I said this before, I said City will really need to have a very good gap coming into the game, because of the squad depth and the lack of, and the many injuries that we're having. At that point in time, right, I said you've got to hold the game for at least 70 minutes, and from there you've got to try and just sit back and really park the bus. Clearly, what I said just became reality because they were 3-0 up after such a long time, and to concede that manager shows how poorly defensively they've been. How poorly defensively they've been, and it clearly shows the absence of Rodri again. January will have to be a game changer for them if Rodri doesn't come back. Actually, I'm quite sure he's not. But we've got to get a very good replacement for Rodri, or at least a really good backup for Rodri. Clearly, Calvin Phillips wasn't the catch. Clearly, Nunes isn't the catch either. Nunes is in fact better to play on the left-hand side of the midfield to push up a little bit more. So this is terrible. And obviously, Kovacic now injured, unable to take over that role. Gundogan is getting older. He's not the Gundogan that we're used to knowing. He's as players grow, as they age, the quality is bound to drop. Maybe Gundogan is already past his prime, but he still did pretty well, I felt, in Feyenoord and even in the game against Tottenham. But Clearly, something's very, very wrong at the club now. Again, winless in 6 games now in all competitions, but at least it's not 6 losses in a row. But this is clearly not it, isn't it? I think when I look at the statistics, City had 23 shots and 5 on target. Tottenham had 9 shots and 7 on target. You can clearly look at the difference of how much more clinical Tottenham have been and how City managing to create chances, not getting the ball on target enough, not troubling the keeper enough. It's a problem, isn't it? And as I said, defensively, you've got to be sound. Feyenoord has shown that. And City have conceded so many goals, and it's not really looking good in terms of the goal difference. You tell me to concede 17 goals in 12 games in the Premier League season, and we've conceded, I think, conceded more goals to teams like Manchester United, teams like Chelsea, teams like Arsenal, teams like Brighton, Tottenham, Nottingham even. This is terrible, isn't it, from the club's perspective? And Tottenham, again, it's so weird. This inconsistency that they're having, I don't get it. To lose games Ipswich, and then to beat City, that's just weird, isn't it? Like, oh my god, I can't seem to wrap my finger around things anymore with Tottenham. Like, I mean, they're playing. I think they're playing a European game coming up tomorrow as I'm recording this, and you tell me what now? They're probably gonna lose against the team wherever they're gonna play. So clearly Tottenham, they're so good against City, and I think I saw a lot of memes online as well. Whenever Tottenham play against City, they're so good, and I clearly understood at that point in time, I was making the video and the predictions that clearly it's going to be a challenge because Tottenham have a really good track record against City. To lose 4-0, unacceptable, 100%. Draw 3-3 against Feyenoord, also unacceptable. This matchup isn't really talking about Tottenham here because clearly Tottenham just managed to get a massive win for them. The goal difference is even bigger now for them, and they catapult them up the table as well. This result clearly doesn't speak about how the season has been for both sides, and clearly as for City, it's not good. It's facing Liverpool this weekend. We'll talk about that in the Game Week 13 video, but I am more worried than anything, to be honest now. This is diabolical. Again, we'll see what happens with both sides, and we'll talk about that again in Game Week 13. But just on this game alone, I think disappointment is an understatement of how I feel about City at this point in time. I'm rather lost for words. I mean, as I said, don't get me wrong, I still love the club for whatever it is. I'm still supporting them, giving my absolute support for them behind the scenes, but this is just clearly unacceptable. It's not about the result, I think it's more about the performance and knowing where the squad is. This should still be able to eke out a very good performance, and that's it. To lose 5 games in a row and doesn't make sense to me, so it's a terrible result. I don't know more to say about that one. Right, Southampton Liverpool. That was tight, wasn't it, for Liverpool? I think they had some scares. Arguably, I think Southampton were really competitive in that game. Obviously, again, quality difference has shown. But yeah, Southampton really put up a fight in this one. So, close to dropping points as I've predicted. Liverpool obviously had a scare, and obviously Salah's brace also saved Liverpool massively. But yeah, otherwise, I think this game was pretty straightforward. I wouldn't say it was a vintage Liverpool performance, probably. But I mean, to beat Real Madrid just yesterday or 2 days ago. Yesterday, I think. Yeah. So, again, really good result from Liverpool in the league, in the Champions League. Doing extremely well under Arne Slot. He's really defying all the odds, to be honest. I think when I've also expected him to come in and struggle a little bit, I have not seen that bit of struggling yet. Will it happen maybe in midway through the season? Maybe. But at this point in time, you've got to give credit to Liverpool. You've got to give credit to Arne Slot. You've got to give credit to the team. They're performing extremely well. Nothing more to say about them except the fact that they are just going to continue what they're doing. Will be very terrifying when the matchup comes around this weekend. We'll talk about that in the next video. But yeah, great result again for Liverpool, and that's how they managed to get 8 points clear. And I think it's good, at this point in time, if they want to win the league, they really just don't need to look back anymore. They've got to look forward. They've got to tell themselves to capitalise on the games they've got ahead. They've got a sizable gap now at the back, and as though as they're able to match the results if they want to look back, or if they're able to take things better and keep winning games, keep really having very good results, surely you're going to win the league this season. Of course, I wouldn't want that to happen, but you've got to expect and accept the fact that if a team, how you win games, the number of games that you win and the performances that you put in is probably going to determine whether or not you stand a better chance of winning the league, and the results are probably going to show that. You know, if you're constantly performing well and you're losing, clearly there's a problem. But if you're always doing well and you're winning, you deserve what you deserve really at the end of the day. So, of course, Liverpool had many chances, more like many times, occurrences when they were so close to winning the league, lost it just at the end. So, I don't know if it's happening in the season. I think Liverpool should still be very cautious, but otherwise, I think it's a great game for them and has been a great couple of months since Arne Slot's reign. It's been fantastic for Liverpool. So I don't think they can ask much more and just got to continue what they're doing. As for Southampton, yeah, just got to try to fight to live another day kind of vibe. Difficult, isn't it, for Southampton? But yeah, just unfortunately not the Premier League quality that we've seen a couple of years back before they got relegated. So it is what it is for Southampton. I mean, they've clearly lost a lot of their good players over the years. Lallana, Sadio Mane, namely, both of them, top of my head. I think Charlie Austin was pretty good at some point, but he didn't really go to a top club. Dusan Tadic, I think, was at Southampton at one point and was pretty good and moved over, I think, to Ajax, I think. Yeah, so Southampton always had a really good set of players. Oh, James Ward-Prowse as well. Yeah, but ultimately, I think you've got to understand that Southampton are really going to struggle this season, and I think the trend's going to continue. But I think it was a really good fight from them this game, and they've got to give credit to them. But otherwise, yeah, a game which had its opportunity for a bit of an upset, but it didn't happen at the end of the day. So, congrats to Liverpool and lucky Southampton, but that is really the state of how it is right now. Right, next up, Ipswich Man United obviously welcome Ruben Amorin. When he played the three at the back formation, I was also pretty amazed and pretty surprised. I think he's obviously trying something new with the team, and to score pretty early on just shows like how rather offensive his formation has been being put forward. I think Man United had the chances to probably win. I felt it's a little bit of a disappointing result, but to try three at the back in Man United when they clearly don't have three good centre backs with Johnny Evans, Mazraoui, who's not really a proper centre back, and De Ligt. Yeah, you've got to have better centre backs to really have a solid back three. But otherwise, I felt it's okay. I don't think it's a very bad game from Man United's perspective. I think Amorin is going to try to take in something from that game. He did talk about how he said the players were actually quite scared. I don't exactly think that way. I think it's just how the players have always been performing. But ultimately, a great result from Ipswich point of view. I mean, to get a 1-1 draw against a Man United team, it's always a very good result for a team that's not as competitive as Man United, despite Man United being not competitive themselves. But yeah, otherwise, I think it's a good result from Ipswich's perspective. Of course, again, they're still in trouble in the relegation zone, but again, as I said, the fighting spirit that Ipswich has is good enough at this point in time to continue to allow them to fight for games and try to pick up as many points as they can, try to score goals, try to defend properly. But yeah, I think Man United probably should have won the game, but I think Amorin is still trying out, so let's not cut him that much slack just yet. I think the next few games, when he's able to at least develop a level of system in the team, I think that's when we'll probably see whether or not what he's doing or his philosophy or his tactics, are they working at the club? Of course, arguably, you can say like he should have just taken whatever Ruud was doing and just sort of continued that trajectory because it felt very positive. Yes, but obviously every manager has their own managerial style, so I think with Amorin, he's going to have to try, for sure, 100% to try and make things work with the club, and maybe, just maybe, it might work out, but it's going to take a little bit of time, and I think fans should be a little bit more patient. But otherwise, I think it was probably an entertaining game for a lot of people. But yeah, 1-1 draw, great result from Ipswich. Questionable result, obviously, from Man United's point of view, and I just think it's got to do with Amorin just testing things out. Right, and to wrap this one up, Newcastle West Ham. It's clearly a shock for me because I don't exactly believe that if you tell me West Ham were to win this game, it was going to happen. I clearly didn't expect this result, and I felt like Newcastle, at the back of their fantastic result against Nottingham, I felt they were going to continue this trajectory on, and yeah, I was more amazed. But ultimately, West Ham were very, very clinical. It's a West Ham that's how they win games. That's how they won games actually, where they're trying to go against the run of play, try to create some chances, use those chances to score a goal. Obviously, Souček's header is actually the first goal that West Ham has scored from a corner this season, and it's the first goal Newcastle have conceded from a corner this season. So that's a very interesting stat indeed, a very random but intriguing stat. Bissaka's goal was pretty good. I think it was very well worked. Probably West Ham had a couple more chances here and there, and I think Newcastle had a lot of chances as well. I think it's squandering from both ends, but ultimately West Ham was slightly more clinical. And of course, this has probably eased the pressure. Well, not probably, definitely eased the pressure on Lopetegui. Again, I still believe like Lopetegui isn't really doing a very good job. As I said, I'm not sure if it's because he's unable to implement what he wants to implement in the team, or if it's because of the fact that it's just been difficult, I think, with the players he has, and how thin the squad is, I guess, and just things not going his way, etc., etc. There's so many factors that people can allude to, but evidently it's not still the West Ham team is still not good. I think performance-wise compared to last season, and things still need to get better. I think this is just like a little bit of a happy thing to celebrate for now. Like, oh, at least they've got on a win. This West Ham side clearly can do better than this. I think Newcastle will definitely need to do better than this. They're definitely much more capable. They shouldn't have lost this game, in my opinion at least. Shouldn't have lost the game, but they did. So they're really going to have to, again, dig deep and figure out how to sort this problem out. But otherwise, great result for West Ham. Not a very good result for Newcastle, but I think next game week, maybe we're back to square again. You'll see Newcastle taking a win and West Ham losing points, but again, that'll be for another video. And yeah, that'll be it, guys. Crazy game week 12, in my opinion. A lot of things have happened. We'll be recording the pre-game week show for Game Week 13 after this. But ultimately, I felt, if this is what Game Week 12 has to show off, at least if this is how the Premier League has been showing itself so far, I'm quite positive that we're going to have a really, really good season ahead still. I think there's going to be a lot of action coming up ahead. And always looking forward to the next game week, and especially how many games there are over the next couple of weeks. Things can really shape up in the Premier League more clearly now by then. And I think a lot of things would start to see itself forming. So yeah, but with that being said, that'll be it for me for today. Thank you very much for watching. Drop a like if you guys have enjoyed, and of course subscribe if you're new around here, and of course get discussing in the comments down below any thoughts. And of course, I'm sure there are always some disagreements with me, and you're welcome. We're happy to start a little bit of a debate in the comments down below if you guys do like that as well. But that'll be it for me. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye.